it's a good enough reason, but is it the reality of what will break an artist in today's industry? I don't think so. Obviously, the music needs to be there, and that's what comes first. Like, you can do everything from marketing to promotion to like cosigns. You can literally do it all, but if the music isn't there, nothing will stick. But if you do everything kind of along those lines and the music is there, then it's gonna work. And but with that being said, those things do need to be there as well. So like, you do need to have like a personality, you need to have the marketing, you need to have like a cosign, like you need to kind of have all of the boxes checked nowadays. And that's what makes it so hard to break through the noise, is that a lot of the artists will have like one or two, but the rest aren't like completely fleshed out. And the reality is like, there's a surplus of artists right now. There's a surplus of music. We live in like a passive listening experience. So for you to break past the music, you need to be your own artist. You need to really be like working towards creating this universe.
It sort of depends on a few things, actually two things. I think it depends how we're defining good music. And I think that obviously good music can come in all different forms and fashions. But I think that if we're talking about music that is generally accepted to be good, groundbreaking, thought-provoking, original, etc., then I think that it's worth defining those parameters in the sense of, okay, does good music mean it's beloved by critics? Does good music mean it's winning Grammys? Does good music mean that it finds a very small but devoted fan base? I think it's worth, but for our purposes, making good music, I'll just say like something that's widely accepted to be very good or original or worthy of critical acclaim or year-end lists, whatnot. But in terms of making it in an industry, and this is kind of my answer to this question, making it in the music industry looks a million different ways. And I think that my answer generally is yes, because you can define success in so many different ways. I think that if you are a metal band and you make really good metal music and you get it out there, it might take some time for it to gel, but I think that you will make it in the metal community. I think you will be able to, again, this is if we're talking about meeting a threshold of quality, you will find that audience. You'll be able to nurture that relationship with fans and build a community and tour behind it and hopefully, be successful financially behind it. I think that looks very different in terms of making it in the industry if you're a pop artist or a hip hop artist. But I think that generally, if the music is sound enough, and that's all that really matters, is that has to be the priority. There's no way around it, especially in 2021. You have to actually have good music in order to succeed. But in terms of making it in the industry, it looks a whole bunch of different ways. But I think that finding that success, whether it's, you're a pop artist within the major label machine and your song is good enough that, radio will start playing it. If you're an independent pop artist and your music is good enough, and it might not get played on the radio because it's harder for an indie artist to get played on the radio, but you also will probably find an online fan community that gradually grows, and you'll be able to play shows and you'll be able to release more music. I think that in terms of keeping the music as the key component, artists will find success. They will, quote unquote, make it in some form or fashion. And I think that definition is in the eye of the beholder a little bit, but I think that it will happen.
I think that could go both ways. Today, like, there's so much new music coming out every week. Spotify is just being overloaded, and it feels like a SoundCloud now. and it's hard for artists to break through, especially new artists. So in that sense, it's not good enough to just make good music. But also, I think that if you make a great song and if you place it well online, it'll find its way because of the algorithms and that are always improving. It'll find its way, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's a trend that we've started seeing more and more in recent years. It's just how big of a difference the algorithms can make for an artist and like their growth. So yeah, it could really go both ways. It's on one hand, there's like so much music out there to compete with, and then on the other hand, I don't know, you have the internet, you know, at your service, I guess, and you can, if you have a good sound, like you could technically do well with those algorithms.
Like one of my albums hit like a YouTube algorithm, and it was getting a bunch of hits, and it just kind of changed everything and brought in a lot more fans to the label as well, and to our artists, other artists.
I feel like the honest answer is kind of shitty, and it's there's no. It's no. And I wish it could be as simple as like you have a great product and you're going to get very far. But at the same time, it's just like so many people have great products and so many of them don't really get anywhere. And I think a lot of it comes down to, which is something that I really hate, but I think we have to acknowledge, is like the people who usually make it are the ones who have the most resources and the most connections and the most privilege. Like, first of all, it's so expensive to like even make music and to get a team behind you. And it's also like the amount of like I have so many friends who like want to make more music, but they simply are working like 3 jobs and they can't afford to take off time. And it's like one of those things where it's like, as talented as people are, as good of a product you have, it's like you still have to have an insane amount of like connections and resources to kind of like actually get pretty far. And even like the artists these days who seem really like homegrown DIY, like I did this all on my own. It's just like as someone who like works in the industry and I've like worked in various like music media marketing things, the truth is just like no. It's like the artists that I thought were actually truly like DIY, I was like, oh, we're working their stuff and I know how much we cost. And it's just like you have to have a lot of time and energy and resources in order to even afford to get a chance. So a lot of it's just like, okay, yes, you have to have good music, but also you have to have a good team and time. And also a big part of it, I think, is also just like you have to know your branding and your aesthetic and your narrative. So that's another side that I think is also equally as important as having a good sound. Is just like you have to know how to sell yourself. And then I think on top of that, the artists who make it, who don't always have the biggest and flashiest teams behind them, the reason why they make it is because they're persistent. And I think persistence also is something that is extremely crucial for artists to kind of have, and remember that it's like a marathon and not a sprint, because so many artists kind of like they have a great song, a great aesthetic and everything, like they're ready, like they're almost there, and then they drop the song, they drop the record, and they're like, okay, why aren't we selling out tours yet? Why aren't we getting written up in like Rolling Stone yet? And it's just like you have to kind of like have a solid foundation. Is something that I find myself telling our artists a lot of the time. Like, as good as they are, it's just like in order to make it, it takes a few releases usually to kind of get up there. So like the first release can go extremely well, but you're rarely gonna ever like, you know, get the hugest blogs on the first try. But it's all about this like building your relationship and building your branding and getting the momentum there. And then like on the next release, yes, we should go for the bigger ones. And like, yes, we'll start like selling out your shows and stuff like that. But it's always just like you have to just keep at it and remember that it's not just like one and done, you put the song out, I'm gonna be famous. It's just like you have to keep working at it, like keep your head up and like believe in yourself and just keep trying, because it's gonna come eventually, but not right.
Yeah, it is. I think at that point it becomes way more situational, because you have the label has to take into account how much resources and money and bandwidth and team power are we gonna have to put behind this. Sometimes it's not the right timing because they have bigger artists or artists that they're already developing. I mean, you can't sign 20 developmental acts and do a good job for all of them. You just can't. And so for us, you know, it's been really important about, you know, if we are really passionate about someone's music, and we see the vision and we see where it's going to go in the next 5-10 years, whatever it is, you know, take the risk, do it. And, you know, a lot of times those artists, you know, they're not going to get $1 million deals if they're, you know, a nobody artist. But at the same time, I try and still structure them as fair and favorable for both sides as possible. And just like I said, get into business with good people with good hearts. There's this guy Turbo I signed about 1.5 years ago. He had 200 monthly listeners, 200. He has almost 400,000 now. And that number is going to go up and down. It's Spotify, it fluctuates and stuff. But the growth that he's had as an artist is way greater than I expected in that time frame. But that is just a perfect example to me of someone who had a ton of potential, ton of talent, really cool, just like his whole shtick is just, he's this cowboy from Canada who makes like rock, pop, country, rap music, but then he has songs that are like club, dance music. It's just insane. And it's like he's all over the spectrum. He's really genreless. And he's realized every bit of potential and is really realizing every bit of potential that I saw in him. And I know that that's, you know, might be a 1 in 100 case because, you know, not every artist is going to move that fast. Not every artist is going to realize their potential. But at the end of the day, he made good music. And that's all I needed. You know what I'm saying? And for me, having good music, you can build off. You know, I know we talked before about brand and the image and something to work with. But hey, if you make good enough music, we can figure that all out later. You know, it's just like if you make amazing music, that'll carry. If you have an amazing voice, if you're really good at songwriting, if your melodies are great, if you have really catchy hooks, if you are just good at making music and you're talented, good music is always going to carry you. Always. It will always carry you. To some degree, it will always carry you.